Welcome back. So before we start, I want to ask you, are you in state? Have you done your power pose? Have you made a conscious decision, like what you're going to focus on today, how you're going to focus on it? And have you been standing guard to the door of your mind? So I hope you answered yes to those. In this video, I want to talk to you about imposter syndrome. And in the next video, I'm going to talk about overcoming fear and tools we can use to overcome fear, which is part of imposter syndrome. Something that we all come into contact with at some point, and especially when you're first starting out in business, is imposter syndrome. According to Wikipedia, just in case you're not sure or you haven't heard of it before, imposter syndrome, also known as imposter phenomenon, imposterism, fraud syndrome, or the imposter experience, is a psychological pattern in which an individual doubts their skills, their talents, or accomplishments, and has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. Now, despite external evidence of their competence, those experiencing this phenomenon remain convinced that they are frauds and they don't deserve everything that they've achieved. Now, everyone that wants to better their lives feels like this at some point, and especially when you're starting out in business. Although you know logically that you're qualified, you're experienced, you have the knowledge, like that's why you're going into your business, our minds will always look for doubt. So you know logically you're more than capable, but then your brain says to you, well, are you really? Can you do with a little bit more training? Like, wouldn't it just be safe here in this job that you hate, but at least you know what to expect and you're guaranteed you're going to get paid at the end of the month. And so let's just stay here where it's safe. Or what if you do it and you make a mistake or you get judged? What if people judge you and you don't do it right? You know, like, should you really do this? And it's just your brain. Like, we've got million-year-old brains. It's looking for danger when a lot of the time there's not even danger there. And that's when that feeling of like not being good enough kicks in. And then you start going down that rabbit hole. And before you know it, you're saying to yourself, actually, I can't really do this. And this isn't a good idea. And I should just stay in this job that I hate, miserable, because I probably will mess this up. And you've convinced yourself that you're not good enough, even though you are good enough. That's why you're setting your business up. It's the quickest, going down this rabbit hole and thinking like this is the quickest way in business to turn something that's really simple into like the most complicated mess. And you spend hours picking it apart, going over it and complicating something that doesn't need to be complicated. So for an example, I'm here now talking to you on camera. Now, 2 years ago, I would have done a voiceover with pictures because talking on camera was really unfamiliar and uncomfortable for me. And then even when I first started doing videos, you know, like I'd do 100 takes and I'd still pick it apart, you know, everything, like, because I'd be telling myself it's not good enough, no one's going to enjoy it. And I always saw things wrong in the video that people would never have even noticed. But if I hadn't got over that fear and I hadn't just done it anyway and gone with that feeling, got familiar with feeling unfamiliar, I wouldn't be sitting here now talking to you. So don't do a disservice to your clients by letting that doubt and fear overtake you and stop you from moving forward in your business. So one thing we need to get comfortable with, and especially starting out in business for yourself, is that feeling comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. So feeling comfortable with like making unfamiliar familiar. So I heard that from Marissa Peers. She's an amazing hypnotist. I did one of her trainings on abundance. And one thing she talks a lot about is making the unfamiliar familiar and not letting our brains fear like take over. Our brains are designed to keep us safe. And going into business and putting yourself out there to your brain is like a massive risk. And it will come up with all sorts of reasons why you shouldn't be doing this and why you should just stay safe where you are. And a lot of the time it's like, you just need to go for it. So I read a story, and I can't remember where I saw this from, but it's basically about accepting, you know, when you make a mistake and just getting over it or getting on with it. There was a speaker who did a speech, and after he'd finished talking, an audience member went up to him and said to him, "You do know you made a grammatical error in your speech." Now, that speaker could have taken that feedback from that audience member and gone down that rabbit hole and maybe never spoken again. That could have like really, really affected his career. But what he actually did is he turned around to the audience member and said, "Actually, I'll probably think you'll find I made about 40 grammatical errors, but who's counting? And who cares?" But if you were that speaker, how would you have handled that audience member? If, you know, how are you going to handle when you do get customers who are complaining? Some people just like to complain. Like, how are you going to manage them? Are you going to stand guard at your mind with your battens up, you know, or are you going to take it to heart and let it ruin your business? Or you'll be your own worst critic. Are you going to let yourself talk yourself out of something that could turn into like the best thing you've ever done? So I have a sign on my vision board that says, "Allow yourself to be a beginner, because no one starts off excellent." And I love that saying, because no matter how experienced you are or talented or knowledgeable, having that mindset that it's okay to be a beginner, and we all make mistakes, we're human, but when you do make a mistake, you own it, fix it, and you learn and grow from it, and then you just move on, like no drama. It takes that pressure off of yourself that everything needs to be perfect, especially when you're first starting out in business. So you're absolutely amazing at your trade and what you do, but you're just starting out in business. So keep the mindset, allow yourself to be a beginner, and don't beat yourself up if you do make mistakes. So in the next video, I want to talk to you about overcoming fear. And I've got some great tools that you can use to become conscious of that and use them to overcome your fears and imposter syndrome. So please download the next workbook before you start the next video, and I'll see you in the next video.